Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our coaching, publishing, executive ghostwriting, and podcast production services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. Today, we're being joined by Debra Hilton, author of Dynamic Direct Response Copywriting. Debra, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Paul. It's great to be here. I'm looking forward to talking to you today.
Are you ready to get started?
I am.
All right. Question number 1. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
So it's a tricky thing, but you need to focus on your primary message and make sure that your book is structured and written to communicate that message to the audience you're trying to communicate it to. Yes, a book can say many things, but I think you have to have one primary target unless you want to write War and Peace. And so I also always say to people, remember, you don't have to say everything the first time round.
And what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
Overcoming the fear of pushing the done button. There are always more things you can say. There are always ways you can refine it. I don't think any author or artist of any kind is ever totally satisfied with their work. And if they are, then I think that's a problem. So my clients do it all the time, and they sit there and say, well, but we could just put this in, or I'm not quite sure about this. And I say, you know what? It's really great. You need to get this out there. However, when it came to my own book, I did the same thing. It should have been out a year ago, but I've been sorting out little problems for the last year and making it perfect, which it's not. So just hit the trigger.
Well, and I think one of the biggest things is I have this mantra, and it's done is better than perfect, because you can always create second editions, you can make adjustments once it's out, but it's just getting that book out there.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, there is no such thing as perfect.
Exactly. I basically refer to books as constant working documents because they can always be updated. Yes.
Yeah. And look, I think that's really hard to get your head around because it's a big project. You're investing in it, both yourself, your time, your money, and your personal attachment. It is kind of like giving birth. And so it's hard to sit there and say, well, let me put it out, even if it might not be perfect.
Well, let's talk about marketing. So please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launch that worked well.
So just to clarify, my own book's still pre-launch, but I've learned from launching client books quite successfully. The number one thing you need to do is make sure you use Amazon and use it effectively. Some people are really afraid to put their book out on Amazon because they feel as though they're going to send their sales to someone else. But if the book is properly written and has calls to action that will draw prospects back to your website and into communication with you, Amazon's where buyers go to buy. So, the free book plus shipping and handling is a great strategy and works really well, although generally we've found it works if you offer bonuses if they buy through Amazon. They're my big ones. And the other thing is, you can't market a book if you don't have a platform behind it. You need everything from press releases, from social media outreach, and you need to be making an effort to get exposure. Whether you're self-publishing or publishing through a traditional publisher, your marketing platform is everything, and it's your responsibility.
When you bring up a lot of great points, and especially talk about offering bonuses in books, so what types of bonuses would you suggest?
It depends on the kind of book. Most of the people I work with and most business books are written to promote your business. So the kind of bonuses can be more in depth, white papers on a particular subject. It can be a quiz or an assessment. People love doing quizzes and assessments about where they are, and it gives them a feel for where they could go in future and what they haven't thought of. It's always you don't know what you don't know. So the personality type quizzes or the the traffic light. If you're writing a business book on, for example, copywriting, you sit there and say, okay, how is your copy going on attracting traffic, on converting traffic? I've got a quiz designed around that. But people love doing them, and then they see the red traffic lights and they say, oops, I need help, and they come to you.
That's a great way to get them to reach out for strategy sessions or for additional consulting from that point.
Yes. And sometimes it's for referrals too. They'll sit there and say, wow, I'm shocked about what I've discovered. Let me tell my friend Joe, and Joe does the quiz and comes to you. So, people love that sort of thing.
And then these quizzes and everything, so were these like online quizzes, or did they download a form? What was the process with that?
Online quizzes. There are several platforms that I like. I like Try Interact, and I like, if you're using Kajabi to host your courses or anything, Kajabi has built-in quizzes and assessments now, which are fantastically interactive. Really easy to set up too.
And would you believe that you're the first guest that has actually brought up bonuses with the books?
I find that really hard to believe.
168 episodes. Yeah, you're the first one that's really talked about offering the bonuses in the books. It's such a great idea.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that's really cool. So online quizzes, different assessments, could be personality types, red lights. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do this.
Yeah, look, there's backstory, there's case studies, there's so many different things you can do. It's really limited only by your imagination.
Yeah,
technology just makes it, there's so many things, and you see things that other people are doing in other areas. And so a lot of fiction writers offer as a bonus, here's the backstory behind the fiction that I've created, the world I've created, and that draws in their dedicated fans. But it works for business books too. So there's so many different ways you can offer bonuses that people are fascinated by.
And you also mentioned the free book plus shipping, so that sounds like a funnel.
Yeah. And it depends very heavily on your back end. Reality is, as most authors know, you don't make all your money on. You make money from selling the book, but the real money is made through the consulting and speaking and other opportunities that come from the book.
So have you found anything in particular that works out really well with that funnel, different offers? Because typically it's to webinars or to an opportunity to sell a course or to buy a mid-range product. What are some of the things that you've seen that have been effective with that?
All of the above that you mentioned. One of the other things that works really well for, I've got a client who's an IT services provider, and their free book plus shipping leads to an audit of their current resources and a specific, this is what you're spending, this is what we could do, this is how things could change, this is how you can make, not just, because it's never just about expenses and revenue, it's about this is how you can work more effectively so that your employees are happier and your clients are happier and everybody just has a great life.
Yeah, that is great advice with that. Let's talk about your favorite book. So what is your favorite book, and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
So my favorite book, okay, I'm a literature major back in the day. My favorite book is The Canterbury Tales. And it was hard to pick just one. But the number one thing I learned about it is humanity doesn't change. And if you look at all the lasting literature, you see the same message. The human drives and emotions and needs are the same through the centuries, through different cultures, We've lived in 3 different continents, and, humanity is the same. So it applies to your fiction, it applies to your nonfiction, it applies to your business, it applies to your marketing. You are talking to people who have needs and drives and desires. If you appeal to those, and if you talk to people as people, then you win. Everybody wins, everybody enjoys it. I do a lot of direct response marketing copy, and you wouldn't believe how many people think CEOs need to be addressed as stuffed shirts. And they don't. They're people. And if you address them as robots, then you won't get much response. So that's my favorite book and what I learned from it.
And for our final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
So my favorite quote is a little bit long. It is, what if is the basis of all story? And since all of life is story, despite our inability to control circumstances, we're given the gift of being free to respond to them in our own way, creatively or destructively. That's from Madeline L'Engle, who is a fiction writer. And the reason that is my favorite quote is because that what if is the basis of businesses, it's the basis of books, and it's the stuff of life. If we build our business on the possibilities, even if they're improbable, we win. People resonate with story, and that story is just key to giving meaning to life. So that's kind of the long version of my favorite quotation.
That's a great quote. Debra, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
2 ways. My website, which is hiltoncopy.com, and also on LinkedIn at Debra Hilton.
Well, Debra, thank you once again for being on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Thank you very much, Paul. It was a pleasure to be here, and I enjoyed our conversation very much.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how you can be featured in our brand new Get Published business book, go to getpublishedpodcast.com.